This video is all about River Lake, keeping it simple. If you're new to fishing or just want a little bit of a boost, I'm going to talk you through everything you need to know, including rod setups, rigs, hook baits, boosting hook baits, the perfect method mix and much more to get you out fishing on our beautiful little River Lake, what is stocked full of carp, tench, bream, roach, perch, chub, hide and the odd barbel to keep you busy. So if this is something you're into or looking for that little bit of advice to get out there and make the most of this fantastic hobby, get yourself comfy and give this a watch. I guarantee it'll be very easy for you to follow and it will get you out on the bank and hopefully landing loads of our beautiful fish. Time to get set up in the famous Peg 2, get my gear sorted and I'll see you in Peg 2. For the first half an hour, I'll recast every 3 minutes just to build up the bait. And I'm fishing quite a slackish line on the tip, so I know what fish are in the swim because I'll get liners really well. However, while I'm fishing out here at the minute, I've picked line 1, as I'm going to call it, and that's out into the middle. So what I've done there is cast out, set a clip where I'm happy just off the side of the sunken island. But while I'm fishing away there, it's important to keep that swim working for you, get things primed for later. So I always have 3 lines. So 1 is straight out, 2 is my left-hand margin, 3 is my right hand margin, so it gives me options. If my first line don't work or it slows up fast, I can fall back on these spots. But it's key just to keep trickling bait in on each spot and get them primed for when you position your feeder or your waggler in them areas. Okay, so I'm gonna crack on and try and get some fish on the bank. All right, so that's took a little while. I've been recasting the feeder every 3 to 4 minutes. Probably for almost 20 minutes. I've had a couple of little liners, but the tip has just pulled round. I'm into my first fish of the day. What is interesting is my first few casts I was using yellow wafters. I've just made a little change to a pink one, and in seconds I've caught one. It's not very big, it's a nice little carp, but it's fish number 1. What a lovely little mirror. Hopefully, first of many. But you soon get a fast weight. I am using a keep net today. You're not permitted to use keep nets on this lake unless it's in a match. However, for filming purposes, so you can see what I've caught at the end of the day, we are going to use one today. So yeah, let's just rinse and repeat now. Wafter into the bottom, 3/4 full with ground bait. Press it in, really squeeze it in, because you don't want it to come apart. On the cast, pull that out, and that is beautiful. Pile of food and a little pink one right on the top, like the cherry on the cake. So I'm going to flip this back out. So I've got a horizon marker, which is the 3 trees. I chuck that out to my clip, hold my rod back, hit the clip, cushion it onto the water, and then as it's going down, get it into the position. Because the last thing you want to be doing is once that feeder's on the bottom, you don't want to be moving that lead at all, because you'll just ruin the effect of the feeder. You want it sat as one tidy parcel of food. So now you can see I've dipped my rod tip under the water and I've got my finger on the line. I'm just sinking the line till the 2 V's, what your line creates, 2 V's of the line sinking. And once they come together, just put it on there. You want a slight bend. Oh, and my other rod's away. So I am fishing 2 rods at the moment, just till things heat up. So that one's out in the open water and I've gone on line 3 because I've seen some fizzing. You can use up to 2 rods on this lake. But when it proper kicks off, you only want to be fishing with 1. So yeah, I was just more feeling the ground, seeing where I needed to be, because like I say, it was a little bit slow starting out in the middle. This one feels a little bit better. So yeah, I put this one and I've changed the hook bait on this one. So the last one were on the pink one. This was just on a piece of corn, again on the feeder with the same ground bait, but fished tight down my right hand margin. These little carp don't all fight. This one's a lovely little common. Oh. And I think it's time for me to go down to 1 rod. But it just shows just a little bit of patience. Keep ringing that dinner bell with that feeder. Catapulting some pellets and bits of corn over the top, little and often. And it's fantastic. You can really... And as we all know, I am predominantly a carp angler. That's my main discipline of fishing. But I do love a bit of tip fishing. I do all sorts of fishing, to be honest. I love it all. But I do mainly carp fish. So it's really refreshing to get out and get some proper fast sport on the tip rods. But like I say, I'm going to drop down now to 1 rod. Because I don't want to be getting 2 at once. Because it just gets a little bit stressful. It's not the best if you're trying to play 2 at once. So in this net here, fish number 1, he's nearly a pound, isn't he? And I'm in. So I've literally just had them 2 fish and I've flicked it out. The feeder can't even be brought down. It only just touched the bottom. I'd not got the rod down and it pulled around in my hand. What fantastic fun this is, especially while the sun's shining. Feels like another little carp. But for small fish, they don't all fight on the lighter gear. Now I'm using 6-pound line, a 1 ounce tip, and you can see then it will pull in a little bit. So I have just put my back wind on. You can use your clutch, but I do normally use back wind with this style of fishing. I just find it's a little bit more responsive and a little bit easier. Don't they half hang on? So catching fish like this is absolutely a brilliant way to get yourself or young people into fishing and get into the basics of how to cast, how to bait, when to bait, most importantly that fish car. Lovely scaly mirror. And fish number 4 just goes to show you need that little bit of patience. The first 20 minutes I had 1 little liner, and then in the last 3 minutes I've had 4 fish, which is fantastic. I'm happy with that. Check him out. No one can moan at that. That's absolutely beautiful. That's fish number 4. What a stunner. Absolutely beautiful. Slip that into my net. And then let's get it back out. To try and get it fairly accurate, you don't have to be on a bucket lid. However, hitting that clip nice and gently, hitting the clip behind you, following the rod forwards. Just had a bite and missed it. Follow, like I was saying, so you want to cushion the feeder onto the water so it goes plop and not thud. That's just ensuring good presentation and that your ground bait isn't coming off your feeder. And then if you just gently follow it forwards, it just makes sure you've been as accurate as possible. Like I say, you don't have to be mega accurate, but if you get them concentrated in one area, you will get a lot more bites. So you see that, and I'm getting the rod back into position, rod tip down, and then the 2 V's of the line sinking. Soon as they meet, I'm making sure really carefully not to move that feeder. And then just have your tip like so. And just a little bend in, and there you go. We're fishing. I'm just going to fire a few pellets out there because there is obviously a number of fish out there. Just to keep them in the area. One thing worth mentioning is at Wyreside, you're only allowed to use the brands of pellets we sell, which are DNA, Dynamite and Mainline. So they're the pellets you must use. The ones I'm using today is 4mm bug pellets. Well, another little carp coming to the net. Did 3 casts since the little fluid, and again the bite seemed to have slowed down, but I was still getting liners knowing there were a number of fish there. So again I just switched again this time. As you can see in the net there, this one was on a orange tuna and aniseed. Look at that, what a fish they are. I catch these all day long and be happy, but hopefully we'll get a few of them big specimen tench later on in the day. So we're into another one. Feels like a little carp. If you can see what I'm doing here is I'm keeping my rod low, which I wouldn't really do in carp fishing very often, but I'm keeping the rod nice and low, because what you find is if your rod tip's low to the water, the fish come up in the water, and then right at the last minute when I see it in the edge, then I lift the rod up in the air. And remember, you don't need to wind your line right up to the tip. You want a good rod length of line out so you can control the fish and guide it safely into the net, like so. But yeah, in this style of fishing, by keeping your rod tip low, you get the fish in a lot faster and they come higher up in the water. So that's just a little tip for you. This one's a small one, but again, another stunning little carp. But where are all them tench at? I'm going to carry on catching these carp, but as soon as it slows down, I'm going to drop onto line 2, my left hand margin, and have a go for the tench. But we've not been fishing overly long yet. We've only fished for just over an hour, I'd say, and we've had 6 carp so far, so it's going okay. The conditions aren't ideal. It is bright sunshine. It's lovely to be sat here. However, for the fishing, it's a little bit bright in my opinion. In she goes. And these carp are definitely out in that open water just off that sunken island, as to be expected. Look at that for a scaly mirror. Slip it back into the net and rinse and repeat again. Now we've caught a few fish. I'm going to go through the basics of what you need to fish on a coarse lake, and also how to set your rod up, how to use your reel, what line you need, etc. So what do you need to come coarse fishing? The first things I've got to mention is at Wyreside on all our lakes you have to have an unhooking mat. That's to put your fish on if you get bigger fish, to unhook them safely and make no damage to the fish. Secondly, a landing net, because if you catch any fish you need to be netting it and not swinging it in, especially if it's larger. So they're the 2 first things I'm going to mention. And then obviously what's next? We need a rod. So today we've been talking about tip fishing, so I'm going to show you the rod I've been using. This is just a run-of-the-mill tip rod. This is in 9 foot. I do like 9 and 10 foot rods. They're perfect for this size of lake. That's the sort of thing you want to be looking for. And in this day and age now, when you buy a tip rod, they normally come with 3 different tips. Normally 1/2 ounce, 1 ounce and 2 ounce. I go for middle of the range for this because I'm not casting far, it's not windy. So a 1.5 ounce tip is perfect. So once you've got the rod, it's simple. 2 sections plus your tip. So get it, you just slide it together. I'm just looking down it, making sure my eyes are all in line. And then finally, I'm just going to slip my tip onto it. Again, just slide it in nice and gently. Make sure it's all straight. And that's the rod I'm using, 9 foot feeder rod. Perfect for this sort of fishing. Capable of landing carp, bream, tench, all that sort of stuff. And then next, that's no good without a reel. So you want a reel, just a normal, you don't need to go mad with a reel, just a small reel, make sure it's got a clutch and a back wind setting, and you're more than happy. And then obviously it needs to be full with line. When you come to line, anything on here 6 to 8 pound is more than enough. And just make sure your reel is full to the top of the lip on the reel. And then you need to put your reel onto your rod. So this is where your reel goes. You just slide the bottom in, some are at the bottom, some are at the top, and you just tighten it like so, and that is your setup. So that is the basics of what you need to come coarse fishing here at Wyreside. Then obviously, as I'm going to discuss in this film, what rigs to use, the bait you need, but that is the basics of what you need. Seat box or a chair, so you're comfortable. And this one has got a rest built into to rest the rod, so it's still and I can watch the tip. But if you've not got a box and you're using a chair, just a bank stick is more than sufficient. Okay, so that is the things you need to fish here on River Lake. We're into another one. Now I'm going to take this time after I've got this in, I'm going to go through how to make a ground bait, what I look for in a ground bait, and how I get it ready for the flatbed feeder. So now we're going to talk ground baits, keeping it simple but super effective for the flatbed feeder, targeting carp, bream and tench alike. Right, get this in the net and we'll talk ground bait. There's loads of these on the market. I've got a couple in front of me here, and it's personal preference a lot of the time. However, a rule I do stick with, I try and go more fish mealy in the summer, and I go more non-fish meal in the colder weather, just because the fish meal reacts better with the warmer water temperatures, and the non-fish meal works better with the cooler water temperatures. So what have we got here? So we've got the Sweet Super Method Mix Dark. Here we've got the Sweet Super Method Mix Light, and in between we've got the Super Natural. So these are all packed full of different particles like crumb pellets and things like that. So there's loads of attraction in these. You could use these on their own, just one of them in a bucket, add lake water till you get a good consistency, and that'll catch you plenty of fish. However, I like to go to the next level a little bit. So I'm going to talk you through how I've made my ground bait for this session. So first of all, I've got a bucket here with some lake water in it. You can use that as it is. However, I like to be a little bit different. So I'm going to take the Super Scope X. It smells lovely, offers loads of attraction. I'm just going to add this. I've only got that much water in the bucket. I'm going to add a good help into that to flavour the water. Then obviously I'm going to be using sweet corn as well. I don't want any sweet corn in the mix because that'll make it break down and not go onto the feeder very well. However, the juice is really good and not to be wasted. So I'll tip the juice into the water, like so. And then now I've got a bucket of really nice, attractive water. So that's the first thing I do. And then with these, I'm just literally going to do the same amount of each one. So we'll start with a Sweet Super Method Mix Dark. So this is the base of the mix. As I say, it's got loads of particles in it, really attractive. And then this is the same stuff, but in the light. This is just to give me a little bit of visual aid. So it's still going to be a dark mix, but it's not going to be completely black. And then finally, this stuff is really good. It's the Supernatural. Going back to the carp fishing thing, it's very similar to like the bug profile and stuff like that. This is a really fine ground bait, so it really helps bind it all together. So once I've got them in there dry, I'm going to mix them all around. So it's all nice and even, mixed in, get into the corners, and then you're going to be like that. You can see the lighter stuff and all the particles in there. It's lovely. So that's that. Now it's adding water. It's crucial you do this little and often. If you put loads of water in straight away and it gets too wet, then you start having to add more powders. You end up with too much bait and you end up just in a bit of a mess, really. So we're going to start by just tipping a little bit in, like so, and then give it a right good mix. Work it with your hands, get that water through. I'm nowhere near right there, so we're going to add a little bit more. Another right good mix. Work it all in so it's all equal. You want it all the same. You don't want dry bits and wet bits. It needs to be all worked into the ground bait. And now you can see it's starting to bind, but it's not binding enough. That won't work in the mould for the feeder. I'm going to add a little bit more water, just so I've got it right. And remember, it will dry out, but that is what we're looking for now. That binds really well. It's going to go into my mould, my feeder's going to stick it, and it's going to come out lovely. So that's all you need to do. That's your ground bait done. Leave that for 15 minutes and then you're good to go. Yeah, so that is your ground bait done. It is going to dry out throughout your sessions. Keep this flavoured water, sit it behind your chair, sit it behind your seat box, somewhere you can get to it. And as your mix is drying out, you don't want to be tipping it because it won't need much. What I do is just put my hand in like that and then work my hand through the mix. Do that 2 or 3 times depending on how dry it is, and just get it back to that optimum level where it's nice and binds but it still breaks down really thin. So this ground bait's going to work for you because it's going to go down as one, so you've got your pile, and then it's going to break down pretty fast, attracting all them fish in, oozing food signals. You've got loads of different things going in there. You've got like all your little bits, you've got the boosted water, and that is super simple yet super effective. That is my go-to method mix for the middle of summer when that water temperature is above 16 degrees. Why not give it a try and let me know how you get on. So the bites have slowed down out on line 1. That line I'm fishing probably 20 metres, just had a knock then. 20 metres, they've properly slowed down, or getting bites every from like a second to a minute constantly. Now it's slowed down, so now is the time I'm going to explore my left and right line. I'm going to start with the left line, as I've been referring to line 2, and we're going to go for the tench, try and get some bigger fish now. We've got loads of little carp, a roach and a skimmer, but we're going to go into the margins and see what they've got. But I will keep putting bait out there with a catapult, because if they don't go to plan, I've still got that to fall back on. Right, so I've just reloaded the feeder. I have a little change of hook bait. I'm going in with pellet to begin with, same ground bait, and I've also added a bit of the spicy sausage liquid to this. Really fishy, the tench will love it. Just going to flick this in, just tight-ish to the bank. So that is probably 6 foot off the bank. That's where I'm going to start. And if I don't get bites pretty fast off that, I will go a little bit tighter if they're right up against the bank. But I'll start a little bit off on the bottom of the shelf, see if there's any big fish sat around and fancy a little bit of a nibble on my feeder. It's a lot busier than I'm used to, this sort of stuff. Caught a season's worth of fish today, Alex. So I have switched to the line 2, fishing down the left-hand margin. It was a little bit slow, so again I reintroduced my second rod out onto there. I've just caught a small carp off that, but after probably 8 or 9 minutes, this one's wrapped round. It's definitely a better fish. Does feel like a tench, but whatever it is, it's definitely the biggest fish of the day so far. And this just come to a little pellet. Oh, it's a cracking tench. Cracking tench, 5-pounder. 5-pounder. This one just come to a pellet on the primed left-hand margin on the feeder with the grain bait I've used for both spots. But that is an absolute belting tench, that is. Easy 5-pound. Now that's what this lake's famous for. Let's have a quick look at it. Oh, look at that for a tench. 5-pound all day long. It just shows priming them close in spots ready for a switch when it dries up out there a bit is worthwhile. That's a specimen tench in anyone's book. A 5-pounder is a big tench. Right, let's slip this back and hopefully his big sister's there. Right, get it into the net and let's try and get another one. So now I'm going to get this fish in the net and we're going to talk about rods, reels, how to set it up from the key steps at the beginning to how you put the feeder on safely and effectively, and also what rigs I'd use and why. Okay, so now let's talk rigs. Right, so now I'm going to show you how to set up the feeder rod. So you've got your rod and reel here. Just open your bail arm, take your line out, and then we're just going to thread it through the eyes of the rod. Make sure you don't wrap it around the rod or anything. It's got to be eye to eye. You don't want it any tangling because it'll affect casting and playing fish, etc. So just do this. It's a little bit fiddly with feeder rods and things because there's a lot more eyes on them than like your carp rods and your specimen rods. So it does take a little bit of time. Okay, so when that's through, pull it down, put your bail arm back on so you're not losing line everywhere and getting in a mess. Put your rod down somewhere nice and safe, and then it's time to get the feeder on. So today I've been using the Guru. This is 28 gram, more than enough. Maximum distance I'm fishing is 25-30 metres, and this is a medium size with a large mould. So how do you put this on? So it's all built in, an inline feeder. You thread the thin end in first. And if you just slowly pass that through, it will come out the other end. And once it's the other end, you obviously need to secure this onto your line. You don't want anything behind the feeder, like shots, knots, anything like that, because that makes this rig unsafe. And same, I don't lock swivels into this like you would when you're carp fishing. I fish it free running. So I'm going to take a quick change bead and then just separate it. So you want the big end first, and you go through the thick end. Once you go through the thick end, then you've got the clip where this is where your hook link's going to be mounted to. There's a little hole and a groove. You thread through the groove and hold it, and then we're going to do a 5-turn knot. So the way you do it, so you've got your line through, that's in the middle, put your finger there, and then twist round 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you've done that, go back through where your finger is with the tag end, like so. Just pull that down nice and gently. Make sure it's all in line with the groove, and then just dampen the knot. Just pull that down nice and tight. And then just nip away the tag end. And then that is your feeder setup. As simple as that. It's only 2 components. You've got your feeder and your bead, like so. And then you need a rig. With coarse fishing, there's loads of rigs on the market, ready tied. This is what I use. They come in packs of anything from 3 to 10. And the hook size I opt to use is anything from a 12, but mainly 14s and 16s. They're more than ample to land your coarse fish. And you've got a choice of rigs you can use. As I have mentioned, you've got your speed stops, you've got your bayonets, and you've got your standard hair rig. Today I have been using both, so I've been using the speed stops for the pellets, I've been using the bayonets for the wafters. So I'm going to put the pellet one on this. I've already got a hook bait on there. So you just separate that bead, and there's a loop on these hook links. You just pass it over the opposite end to where it's tied on, and there's a little groove and it slots in. So then obviously that goes into your mould, which we will show you. So it's very simple. Remember, there's nothing above the feeder here, so if you did have a break off or anything like that, the hook will be in the fish or on the bottom, but that feeder can get away, making this rig super safe. Really simple, yet really effective, as you'll see when you have a look in my net. Right, let's catch some fish. Yeah. Cool. So we're just playing in another little carp. And I'm catching all these on the flatbed feeder. And I'm just going to slip the net under this one. Another small one, but beautiful all the less. So, like I say, sufficiency and being quick will get you more bites. So I am using a mould. This time it's a large one. And the way I'm doing this, because I'm using a hard hook bait, this is a wafter, so I don't have to worry about crushing that. Just simply place that in the middle of the mould and then get some of my ground bait and just make sure it's level. Then I take the feeder and putting it in the right way around so it's all matching, it sits like that. And then pressing that in really, really, really hard because I don't want it to fall apart on the cast, like so. And then just turn it round, tap, and it comes out and it gives you a perfectly formed little pile of attraction with my hook bait at the top acting like that cherry. Well, people go on about different hook baits, and today has been a real true story of that. The conditions have been tough. We have caught quite a lot of fish. However, we do go through periods of no bites. So I'm recasting every 3 minutes. If I've recast 3 times and I've not had a bite, I've been changing colours and it's been making a massive difference. Orange has been the best colour today. Orange tooty annies have been the best colour, but I've also caught on yellow scopex and red strawberry. They go quiet for a little bit, just swap that colour, keep chopping and changing, and then if you're catching every cast, happy days. If you're not, after 3 casts, just have a change. But a lot of the time, by either swapping colour of upbait or adding a different liquid has been getting me them bites. So just being proactive, changing your upbaits, keeping their options pink, yellow, white, orange, match the hatch, keeps them bites coming.
Yeah.
Evening matches, Wednesday night matches.
Oh, it's just not that.
5 till 9. We don't like. This is big. But this one's proper giving me the run around. It's probably about 15 metres out again now. I've been playing it for 10 minutes. It's definitely a carp. I'd say it's definitely the biggest fish of the day. The sun's just dropped and yeah, it seems to be coming back alive again. So I'm going to try and get this one into the net because this will make a big difference to my net full of fish. If I can manage to land it, because it is fighting really hard. Again, this one has come to a strawberry wafter from line 1 out into the open just off the sunken island. Yeah, I've just seen it. It is a carp. I thought it was because it's been fighting too hard to be anything else really. That's definitely the biggest one of the day. Don't know, 8-9 pound common. Caught on a strawberry wafter on the mix. Out on line number 1 out into the middle. Happy with that. Scrapped like mad. Took about 15 minutes to land. 6 pound line and a 1 ounce tip. But yeah, more than happy with that one. Happy days. I'm going to slip this one straight back. Well, here we have it. So that's the biggest tench of the day. We've got carp, skimmers, roach, well over 50 pound in that net, plus that carp head of 8 or 9 pound. We've probably fished for 5 hours and landed, I'd say, 60 odd pound of fish, which is fantastic. Orange being the colour of the day. Key to success, being accurate, swapping from open water to the margins and regular changing the colours and hook bait choice and keep that feed going in. We're just getting into summer now and these fish are hungry, so casting every 2 to 3 minutes has been the key to success today.